Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Gone Rogue. And in this episode of Gone Rogue, I am going to talk about how to deal with toxic people. That is right. In this episode of Gone Rogue, I'm going to talk to you on how to deal with toxic people. So this is one of those life lessons that I want to share when it comes to dealing with toxic people. Sometime in our lives, we'll have to encounter toxic people and learn how to deal with toxic people. So I'm going to offer my opinion on how I deal with toxic people, whether it's at home or at work or online or somewhere in society when we have to deal with toxic people. So first off, what is toxic people? What defines a toxic person or a toxic environment? So toxic is bad. Toxic is poison. When I think about toxic, it's poison. It's bad for you. It's bad for your mental health, bad for your mental health, and bad for you to deal with toxic people. Bad for you to be influenced by these toxic people. Bad for you to work with toxic people. And how do we deal with toxicity, whether it's in at home or in a workplace? When I think about when I think about these things, the first thing when I think about toxicity is that first thing you gotta analyze the situation, and you gotta analyze why is this a toxic person or a toxic environment. You gotta find the origin of why this person or environment is toxic. After you find out why this person or environment is toxic, you have two options. You really have two options. The first option, which I don't recommend, is try to deal with toxic people. And when I say deal with toxic people, you have to point out the situation up front and try to meet in the middle in order to make it not toxic. But the other option, which I highly recommend, because if it's a toxic person or a toxic environment, especially at work, the other option that I really recommend is try leaving that toxic person or that toxic environment as soon as possible, because it's not worth your mental health being in that toxic, dealing with toxic people or being in that toxic environment. And we know there are some toxic relationships that most of them, being in a toxic relationship, whether if you're dating or married, it's best to separate things instead of being able to do petty things. And there's always the third option, and that is stooping down to that toxic person and being petty about it, which shouldn't be an option. That's just you being more toxic than trying to be more toxic than the other person, which does not work well for you. So I don't recommend that third option that I just mentioned. So there are two options when it comes to dealing with a toxic person or a toxic environment, or whether you're in any toxic relationship. Is that the first option is try to deal with it. If that doesn't work well, then most of the time you have to resort to option two, which is leaving that toxic person, toxic environment, or a toxic relationship, because leaving is the best option is the best option, since it's not worth your mental health or mental well-being being that toxic, dealing with toxic people, toxic environment, and being in a toxic relationship. It's not worth it. It really isn't worth it. Then after you leave that toxic person, toxic relationship, toxic environment, then you can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. You can focus on what you want, because being able to leave that toxic environment, toxic person, you are able to be free. You are able to do what you want. And that is the most important thing in life, is being able to do what you want, because you are not forced to deal with that toxic person, work environment, or relationship anymore. You can do whatever you want. You can just move on from the past and not look at it again, and just look at what is ahead for you, because it really isn't. Because life is too short to deal with these things. Life is so short to deal with these things, because it's not worth that time dealing with the toxicity, whether it's a person, work environment, or someone in society, or in a relationship. It's not worth it. It really isn't worth it. But first, before I move on, you must be able to identify a toxic person, a toxic environment, toxic relationship. You must be able to identify toxicity before you can take action. Being able to identify it gives you a better chance of being able to deal with that toxicity before taking the only action, which I recommend, of leaving that toxic environment. So that is my message. You don't want to be stuck with the toxic person forever, toxic environment forever, toxic relationship forever, because it is not worth it. It's not worth it. It really isn't worth your mental health, mental well-being. It's best for that toxic person to be whatever they want. Best for that person, best for you to do what you want without any relation to that toxic person anymore. So that is my take on how to deal with a toxic person. We all gonna have to face that toxic person one day, toxic environment one day, toxic relationship one day. Best for us just to leave, which I recommend the most, the second option. That I least recommend, and the reason why I say least recommend it, because it's not gonna work out anyway, is just to leave that toxicity behind you and move on. Focus what you want to do in life. That is the most important thing. It really is. So comment in the comment section below if you've been with toxic people, toxic work environment, toxic relationship, or whatever that is toxic, and share your story, because I want to know your story and your solution on how to deal with the toxicity, especially in this day and age. And that's all I have to say about the toxicity. This episode of Gone Rogue. If you like this video, please give this video a huge thumbs up. Comment in the comment section below on what you think about this video. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Be sure to check out my other YouTube content that is on this channel. And thank you for watching Gone Rogue, and I'll see you on next one.